Hello and welcome to the next instalment of Driven by Debate. So today we'll be discussing if competitor bidding is a good use of PPC budget. What we like to do in these debates is really delve into various topics on hopefully I'm back in the show. I was just saying, if you hear something said today, we do like to delve into different opinions on a various topics. So if you do hear something said today, it may contradict your own thoughts or your current strategy. We'd love to hear your thoughts as well. So please do comment and ask questions for our analysts. And we'll be talking for around 15 minutes today, and then we'll head over to your comments afterwards. So if I cut off before and you didn't hear the introduction, we'll be talking about competitor bidding and whether it's a good use of PPC budget or not. So I think without any further delay, I will introduce in our speakers for today. We have got George, Chloe, Danielle, and Chris Jones. I'm so relieved to see your faces because it means that my internet has not gone out again. So hi everyone. So yeah, we'll head straight into the questions. So the first one, we'll just open it with I guess like the factors why people bid on competitors in the first place. So I'll head to you first, Danielle. In your experience, why is it that clients want to bid on competitors in the first place?
Yeah, so in my experience, I think it's always been down to retaliation. So other competitors doing it on theirs first. So it's never been really a thing of a client coming to us and saying that they directly want to bid on another competitor. It's always been the other way around first. So kind of, yeah, just the retaliation and doing it back for what other competitors are doing to them.
Cool. And has anyone else seen a similar thing or other reasons why people want to bid on competitors?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of the time it's a vanity project, or to get a good LinkedIn post. But yeah, that seems to be a common one nowadays.
Yeah. And I guess other than the vanity side of it, is there an argument to say that a keyword for a competitor is kind of by default quite a qualified audience if you're kind of selling the same product or service?
Yeah, I'd say so, but it might just depend on the industry as to whether that person who's searching can be persuaded to choose like another brand or business. So if it's a service-based business such as like medical negligence, then there's probably going to be less brand loyalty involved than fashion, for example. So with medical negligence, a user could just be searching for a particular solicitor for the first time, maybe based off like a TV ad or any other reason, meaning that they could be open to choosing like a different firm. But with fashion, I think they're going to be more likely to be previous customers, therefore there's going to be more brand loyalty attached, which will obviously make it harder to persuade them to choose like a competing brand.
And would anyone say like the size of the brand, so your own brand search volume, kind of makes a difference there as to kind of the considerations for whether you would bid on competitors?
I think the types of brand getting a lot of search volume are typically the more well-known brands. So if you're appearing alongside a competitor search and you are sort of a household name, then that will certainly help in a sort of competitor campaign. I think also it's important for what your brand is known for. So, you could forgive someone for thinking Sheila's Wheels only does car insurance, but, if you're appearing alongside Direct Line home insurance searches, and especially if you're appearing in front of an existing customer, then, you're getting in front of someone who might not have considered you previously. So I think there's a couple of factors that go into it. Obviously, size is one, but then what you're most known for is another one.
Yeah. And how about the size of the brand you're bidding on? Like, does that make a difference? Is there different, and would they see different impacts of you bidding on kind of smaller brands versus bigger brands?
I think a bigger brand would usually have a bigger budget. So they're usually more likely to pay whatever it costs to protect their own brand searches. So I think you'll probably have less success targeting bigger brands. Obviously, there'll be more searches to go after, but smaller brands will usually have smaller budgets, so they'll be, less aggressive on their own brand searches, probably spending their money elsewhere. So I think, if you target a bigger brand, you're going to get a lot of volume, but it's probably going to be a bit more expensive. If you target a smaller brand, it's probably going to be more successful, but there just won't be as much volume out there, I don't think.
Yeah. And then I guess, what about potential retaliation from competitors? So thinking about the flip side of, rather than you bidding on a competitor, but actually a competitor bidding on you, what's the impact that can have on your own brand? I know, Chris, you've got some experience with this.
Yeah, I've got quite a bitter experience with this. So I worked in travel in-house before I joined Journey Further, and for a spell, one of our main brands had real problems with a direct competitor bidding very aggressively on brand terms and taking a very high impression share. And this was pre-smart bidding days, so we were using bid optimization tools, and because it saw brand search rightly as being very, very efficient on an attributed basis, it was trying to protect that position and kept inflating our CPCs, which had a really severe knock-on impact on our overall ROI and the blended ROI of the account. And because that was how we were kind of targeted and optimized within the business, that really severely limited our ability to then go out and compete on generic terms. Because the blended ROI was suffering, it then meant it was much harder to bid aggressively on generic terms. So that was a real problem for us. In the end, how we managed to remedy it was by setting a max CPC cap. So we kind of took the attitude that it was costing us so much that we were willing to risk a drop in visibility on our own brand terms, with the logic being that like booking a holiday is a very involved purchase. It's not kind of a one search and convert type journey. It typically happens over 2 to 3 weeks. So if someone's got to the point where they're searching your brand term, they've probably already decided that they're booking with you. So yeah, we set the max CPC cap. What we actually saw was a very, very small drop in visibility and a very small drop in click-through rate. It made basically no difference in terms of conversions and revenue, but we saw a massive drop in what we were spending, and it really helped pull the efficiency right back.
Nice. Some good tips there for if you're seeing some bad impact of competitors bidding on your brand. So yeah, has anyone else got any experience of kind of competitors bidding against them before we move on? Nate, that's fine. Oh, go on, George.
One of my clients, Journey Further, has had some experience with a competitor bidding on their terms. Well, we don't really consider it a competitor. It's sort of the product is sort of similar, but it's not really an alternative to what they offer. Which is, it does drive up CPCs, as you'd imagine. And there also, I think there's a bit of like cross-shopping coming into it. So where people they'll click your ad, but they'll also click on the other ad as well, which, having 2 tabs open at the same time, it's hard to focus on one of them solely. So we do see a bit of a drop in conversion rate. So yeah, it's something that we do keep quite a good close eye on.
Nice. And then I guess before we delve a bit more into like the actual performance side of things, what about people's thoughts on resellers? Because I feel like they're often bucketed in a similar group to competitors.
Yeah, I think it's a difficult one with resellers, obviously, because they are selling the same product. So obviously it's hard, and you can't really like create like a gentleman's agreement or anything like that, because at the end of the day they are selling your product and the company is getting the money, but it's obviously still a lot better for the consumer to come direct through the brand. So yeah, it's a difficult one. I think it's a good thing about what Chris was saying earlier about maybe taking a little bit of a hit on the visibility and having that top position on the SERPs if it's not going to make much difference to the sales and revenue. So I think that'll be a good one for maybe for me to test in the future on my clients and see if it does have the same impact.
Nice. So yeah, I think we've covered kind of considerations and factors and things like that. So I guess moving on to actual performance, because I feel like that's generally how most of PPC is judged, whereas with competitors, it feels like there's kind of other factors that play into things other than performance. But how does it actually perform? Like, does anyone have any experience of bidding on competitors where it has performed successfully or not successfully?
Yeah, so we ran some campaigns for a client late last year, where we kind of got to the point where we sensibly exhaust all of the search inventory that we could get to through generics, and we needed more volume basically. So we tested it on a limited number of competitors. To be honest, it worked pretty well. It'll vary wildly by industry. So, we ran it as a test. It's not something I'm keen on, but obviously, if that's what the client wants to do, then we'll absolutely test it for them. But yeah, it performed pretty well. It was essentially kind of halfway in between break even and where the generic campaigns were performing. So it was profitable, but at a point where you become budget constrained again, then it will be the first thing to get turned off because you can get better returns elsewhere. But there was definitely value in doing it for us. Nice.
Has anyone else had any experience with that?
Yeah, so I did it a few years ago. I was working with a high-end furniture brand, and we bid on maybe 4 or 5 competitors through the client's request. And I think because it was high-end furniture, it obviously had a higher price point, so you really needed one sale for the ROAS to look strong. But I guess looking at it from that angle and in terms of efficiency, it works really well because there wasn't a huge amount of volume from it. But yeah, like I said, it just took that one sale to give a really good ROI or ROAS. Nice.
And Chris, you mentioned something interesting there about kind of doing it because you'd exhausted kind of the non-brand activity, which reminds me, I know, George, you've mentioned something previously about it. Generally, it is you can be quite sure it's incremental traffic.
Yeah, so like when we run, a brand campaign for our own brand terms on paid search, arguably it's not incremental, or it's not 100% incremental, the revenue that comes from it, because they would find a way to the website by other means if we weren't to run that campaign. I suppose like the one undeniable advantage of running a competitor campaign is that any revenue you get is entirely incremental because they were about to go to your competitor's website and not your own. I think another advantage, which a lot of clients really love from this type of campaign as well, is it also can steal market share from a competitor. So you get some really brutal clients who will see that as a huge win for them.
And I guess just thinking about performance again, how do like various metrics compare on competitor bidding versus non-brand?
I think quality scores and CPCs are probably the main one. The competitor, when they're bidding on their own terms, they're probably getting a quality score of 10 out of 10, 99% of the time. I think doing it yourself, bidding on their term, you'll be lucky to get, a 2 out of 10. I've seen some people do it quite well. So I think Monday.com, when you search for Asana, they're top most of the time, and it leads to a landing page, which is sort of a feature matrix, which is, it just goes on to say what Monday has that Asana doesn't. So their quality score might not be as bad as 2 out of 10. It might be 3 or 4. So it might be a little bit better, which will save them a bit of money. But it is expensive. It's when you compare it to the likes of non-brand, it will be like quite an expensive click most of the time.
Yeah, and that leads us quite nicely onto ad copy as a topic. So I feel like we see the ads quite a lot, whereas you mentioned the Monday.com and Asana one, where they're really making it obvious that they're bidding on a competitor. And I feel like they split opinion, those kind of ads. So what are your guys' thoughts on ads that make it really obvious that you're bidding on a competitor, and they use like a bit of tongue-in-cheek ad copy, shall we say?
I think it's obviously personal opinion, but in my eyes, I think it's just a little bit cheeky. And I guess looking at it from like a client and a brand perspective, it completely depends on the tone of voice. Like if a brand has that kind of tongue-in-cheek element to their brand already, then I don't think it's as bad. But if you've got like a more like higher end brand of a fashion client or something like that, then I don't think it's going to work as well, because it can just come across a little bit cheeky and a little bit condescending as well, I think, to the user.
Yeah. Anyone else got some thoughts on the ad copy side of things?
No, I mean, I totally agree with Danielle. Based on tone of voice, it can work for the right companies, but yeah, it can definitely be condescending as well. And we've all seen the examples of "don't you mean?" No. If the search has typed in your competitor's brand, they very specifically mean your competitor. They've not done it by mistake, so don't insult them along the way.
Yeah, I think when people use like a headline like that, it's a bit of a waste of space. Like if you have a USP that's above and beyond what your competitor has, the competitor that they're searching for, that's a perfect place to put that USP. So if you have double the return window that they do, that should probably go in your headline rather than "did you mean blah blah blah." I think that'd be a much better use of character count, to be honest.
Nice. And what about you guys? Like, would you tailor either ad copy or landing pages personally, or would you kind of just stick to the same brand or non-brand ad copy and landing page that you're using anyway?
I think you can, based on what they're searching for, you can probably gain what they're after. So like I said, USPs are a good one to include, any that are above and beyond what the competitors offering, just to set yourself apart. Really, it is hard to distract a click from someone who has a brand in mind. So it needs to be a strong message.
Is there any final thoughts on the ad copy side of things?
I mean, for me, just sort of echoing what George said, but be positive and sell yourself. Don't focus on kind of taking sniper shots at competitors. Like I said, if you've got genuine USPs, focus on selling those. And to be honest, that should be fairly similar to your general approach to ad copy anyway. You don't have a massive amount of space to work with. So if you're focused on selling the business and pushing your genuine advantages, then it shouldn't necessarily have to be wildly different. There are good examples like the Asana one where if you're creating a direct comparison, you can create landing pages and ad copy that talks to that. But otherwise, you kind of sell yourself and be positive.
Yeah. Nice. Cool. So I think we've almost wrapped things up. So yeah, just to reiterate what I may or may not have said in the intro, depending on whether my internet was in or not. Yeah, if anyone's got any thoughts or questions, please feel free to drop them on the LinkedIn post, and we can kind of answer them after this or get back to you kind of later on. But yeah, just one final question. I suppose like people want to bid on competitors because they want to take advantage of their traffic because they feel like it's a relevant audience for them. Is there any other way that we could take advantage of that competitor traffic without necessarily bidding on their brand name on PPC?
One thing that we've been doing on one of our clients for the last sort of like 3 or 4 months is creating an audience in Google Ads of searchers who have been searching for the competitors that we feel are relevant. So rather than targeting these people in the search results, we're targeting them at a later date on things like discovery, YouTube, and display. So I think it will work well for industries with a sort of longer purchase time. So if it's like an instant buy, it probably won't work too well because, if they're searching for a competitor, they're probably going to buy it in the next 10 minutes or so. But if it's like a considered purchase, there might be, a week period whilst they're considering it after they've searched for the competitors. So if you create an audience for those people who have searched and reach them, as frequently and in as many places as you can on, like I said, discovery, YouTube, and display, then that can work really well for you, I feel. Nice.
Cool. Any final closing thoughts then on this topic in general? So whether competitor bidding is a good idea or not in PPC from anybody?
I think my final thoughts are just it's completely dependent on the brand, the client, the size of it, and the size of the competitors and things like that. I think you've just got to take it by a case basis. I think quite a lot of people in PPC are probably against it. But like we've said today, there is instances where it can work. So yeah, it's just something that you've got to consider and take it client by client.
Fab. Perfect. I think we'll probably leave it there today then. But yeah, if anyone is watching this afterwards, please leave any questions that you have and we can get back to you. Just as we're about to close off, we've got a question. So Steve, if a lot of competitors bid on your brand and brand search ends up costing you a lot of money as a result, how do you approach it? Is it as simple as on-off tests to look at revenue loss, or are there other things at play such as losing brand traction over time? Who wants to take that one?
Sorry?
Go ahead, Chris.
Sorry. So from my point of view and from past experience, I think the brand on-off test is always a good thing to do. You know, whether you've got brand competition or not, it's a great way to test incrementality and to genuinely understand the incremental value. After that, there's a few other things you can do. You know, you can talk to the client about potentially ring fencing budget and taking it out of the overall performance budget and saying, well, if you want to protect your brand, that's fine, but it essentially becomes a brand awareness cost at that point rather than part of the overall PPC piece. And then, as I mentioned earlier on, using something like max CPC caps to say, yeah, we are going to defend our brand up to a certain extent. And obviously it varies client by client, but it can be surprising just how low you can take those max CPCs and not lose a massive amount of traffic. So again, you can find a balance point there between, you know, being on a sufficient amount of time to not really lose brand traction, but limiting the amount of investment required.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. It's not just a case of on or off, is it? It could just be a case of reducing the spend. Another question, do you have any examples when you've seen cheeky competitors ad copy done well, and have you got any favorites? Anyone got any that's kind of stand out to them?
I think the Monday one is good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just, I mean, it is a bit cheeky, but then it also, like I said earlier, leads to a landing page, which the copy says monday.com is so much better. And then it ultimately leads to a landing page, which goes on to lay out the reasons why it's better, which, I mean, that sits fine with me. Some of the other ones, I mean, like, I think there's a one feed one. When you search for product cast, it says, ouch, didn't you mean one feed? That's a bit, I don't know, that one doesn't sit well with me. Because it just goes to the home page as far as I'm aware. But yeah, I like the monday.com one personally.
Yeah.
So there was one I saw on one of my clients a week ago from Expedia. And I don't really want to call it out as a good example because they're bidding on our brand, but the ad copy was superb. They came within one character of being a total brand infringement, which meant we could have had the ad removed. But it also made total sense and played into their proposition as well. It was one of those where you almost just have to admire it. It was so well written.
Nice. I like that, calling out your own competitor as having a good run. Cool. Brilliant. Well, yeah, I think that probably closes it off for now then. So yeah, I hope you found what we said insightful. And yeah, we'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions on the topic. Every time I do this, someone else comments. We've just got one last question. What about using the brand name in the ad text? For instance, we are Rapid Spike and have seen Rapid and Spike used in the ad copy. It's quite an interesting one.
Yes, I think this... No, sorry, go ahead, George.
You go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, I've seen a similar thing on one of my clients where sometimes it's not direct competitor bidding as well, but just depending on the brand name and things like that, when your brand name can be used in the ad copy, like it's kind of a clever tactic from your competitors because they know they can get away with it without saying, oh yeah, we're doing it on purpose. So yeah, I think it's one of those frustrating times of competitor bidding where there's not much you can actually do about it. And I think it comes back to the thing of, depending obviously how aggressive they're being, like coming back to like the A/B testing with whether it's worth losing a bit of brand volume and just seeing if it does affect the sales and the revenue.
Nice. Cool. Okay, I think we will call it there. Any other last minute questions we'll just answer on LinkedIn separately. So yeah, thank you everyone who's joined in today and watched, and we'll be back soon with another instalment.